Hello, V. Anton Sproul here again to talk about how you can learn to think like a programmer. Actually, no. In this video, I'm going to talk about something more basic than that. Should you learn to think like a programmer? You see, there are two questions I get asked a lot, and although the wording varies, they basically boil down to the following. How do I know if programming is for me? And what's the best way to start learning programming? I've written a series of articles on these topics, and I've put a link to them in the description of the video. But I thought that I would make a video itself that covers these basic questions succinctly. So the first question is, how do you know if programming is for you? Well, the main thing to realize is that there's nothing in any person's particular background that's going to tell me whether or not he or she will ultimately succeed as a programmer. I actually spent a lot of time once trying to find a correlation between the variables and the records of incoming students and their success in early programming courses, so that I could place the students in the proper starting point in their degree programs. I compared every variable I could get my hands on, and the correlations just weren't there. Even things you would think would have to correlate, like grades in previous computing courses taken at other colleges or in secondary school, well, they weren't great predictors of success either. So your background doesn't really say whether programming is for you. To be specific, things like, are you good at math? Do you even like math? If the answer is no, programming could still be for you. I mean, one of my best friends is a fantastic programmer, and it's a running joke between us how much he dislikes math. I myself didn't start enjoying math, really, until I taught discrete math at the college level. So math really doesn't matter. Also, where you come from doesn't matter. I've taught students from all over the world, in the US, Central, South America, Europe, Africa, all over Asia. And I've had students who have succeeded from all of those places. You know, the only patterns I've noticed among students from different places is in their use of English. Like I realized that my students from India would use the word doubt to mean something they didn't understand, while in the US, people generally use doubt to mean something they didn't believe. And in the UK, people say different to, in places that Americans would say different than. But programming ability, well, that seems to be everywhere. And whether you're a boy or a girl or a man or a woman, that doesn't matter either. People of every demographic category are becoming programmers every day. Now, the interest level of groups may vary. I mean, I think if you grabbed 1,000 people at random off the street and brought them together and said, hey, we'll teach you programming for free, you can stay as long as you want. Some people would stay, and some people would get up and leave. And probably we would find that of the people that stayed behind, more people would be in certain demographic categories than others. Yeah, but that tells us nothing about the abilities of the people who were left behind and whether or not they would succeed. Okay then, if none of those things tells you whether programming is for you, what does? Well, you're just going to have to try programming and see if you enjoy it, because that is the key. For any good programmer, when a program works, a little song goes off in his or her head. That doesn't mean that programming is always fun, the way that playing a video game is fun, but it's rewarding. It feels good when the code is working, and when it's not, it's like an itch that you just have to scratch. If programming is simply a chore you have to complete before you can do something you really want to do, you're unlikely to stick with it and put in the time and effort it takes to get good at it. A lot of people try programming because they think there's a good career to be had as a programmer. Now, that's not a bad reason to try programming, but it can't be the only reason that you want to program. But the bottom line is, if you think you might enjoy programming, give it a try for a while and see how it goes. But what's the best way to try out programming? You could take a course, and often that's a good idea, but you need to be careful. First, I wouldn't make a big commitment if you're just trying to find out if programming is for you. And secondly, some courses may give you a false impression of what programming is like. As I say over and over again, programming is all about problem solving. It's about being given a task and figuring out how to use your tools to craft a program that accomplishes that task. Often, early programming courses are really about how programming languages work, and you spend most of your time typing in a program and modifying existing programs. To make an analogy, there are these services like Blue Apron that'll send you detailed recipes and the exact ingredients you need for those recipes. You follow the steps and you make a meal. Now, just because you enjoy doing that doesn't mean you would enjoy going to a culinary school and becoming a head chef. You see, being a head chef means you have to figure out on your own recipes, and you have to adapt to your ingredients that you can economically source and the changing tastes of your customers and so on. It's problem solving. Now, if you didn't like making recipes from Blue Apron, well, that might be a good sign that the culinary arts weren't for you. But the point is, if you want to know what it's like to be a chef, you can't figure it out from Blue Apron. So, if you're considering a course, try to find out if you'll be solving original problems or largely just copying and modifying code. Now, instead of taking a course, you could try out programming on your own. This is a good approach for most people, but the downside is that, unlike a course, you don't necessarily have a ready access to a teacher who can help you when you get stuck. Now, the good news is that here in the age of the internet, help on any programming topic is usually just a click away. Again, what's important is that you try out problem solving and not just programming syntax. So that means when you get stuck, you don't want to ask other people to fix your program for you, because you're not going to get anywhere that way. You'll have to ask questions that will help you find your own solutions, and sometimes that can be tough. Now, if you're trying programming on your own, you'll need some sort of a guide, such as website tutorials and books. And since we're talking about books on programming, we might as well talk about Think Like a Programmer. Now, my original Think Like a Programmer is designed for people who progressed to a certain point in their programming and got stuck on the problem solving. It's not really a book for trying out programming. However, I've written a new version, the Python edition of Think Like a Programmer, that is suitable for complete beginners. Depending on when you're watching this, it's either in early access or fully available. Now, this book will teach you a lot of the basics of a programming language, in this case, Python, and also give you tools and strategies for solving problems. Every chapter has warm-up exercises where you try out syntax, and then problem-solving exercises where you'll apply these strategies to develop your own solutions. Is this how you should try out programming? Well, again, that depends on what other options are available to you. There are lots of other books and tutorials out there, but few books teach you to solve problems instead of just hoping you can do it once you've learned the syntax. Now, my point here is not to encourage everyone in the world to go out and buy my book. Not that that wouldn't make me happy, but I want to encourage you to give programming a shot if it interests you, and to try it out in a way that you'll really find out what programming is about. A book or course that lets you get your feet wet by building projects from step-by-step instructions, that's fine as a first exposure to programming. And if you did that and you got no joy from it, it probably means programming isn't right for you right now. I mean, maybe later, but it's not something you're into right now. But if you did enjoy that, make sure you try out the next stage, writing original programs to solve problems. And you do that before you decide to go all in on programming. So, are you a programmer? I hope you have fun finding out. As always, please like, subscribe, and share if you found this video helpful and want to see more of them. And feel free to make suggestions for future videos in the comments. Thanks for watching.